Well, I've decided to try a few videos of Canadian desserts and things that are traditional here in Canada, for those of you who are watching from other parts of the world. These are butter tarts, and the video that follows is about making butter tarts, a Canadian dessert that's been around for a long time. A bit of controversy here and there over the ingredients that you put in it, but I'll talk more about that as we go on and I show you the process. But let's try one of these. I think I'll check this one right here. Well, I love the things. I think this is probably maybe the third time that I've ever made my own, but you can buy them in most bakeries. It's a lovely, very short crust, very soft butter crust, and the filling also has butter in it, with a lot of other good things, of course, including raisins. Mine have raisins. There's some controversy as to whether or not the original recipe is supposed to have raisins, but I love raisins, so mine have got raisins in. Very soft crust and a very nice filling. Well, let's go and have a look at how they're made. I made these wonderful Canadian butter tarts. The ingredients I've got assembled here, I'm once again giving it in weights, but the link will give it to you in dry measure, in cups, whatever. It's 2 1/4 cups of pastry flour, or 288 grams. A tablespoon of brown sugar and a half teaspoon of salt. 113 grams of cold butter and 113 grams of shortening, cold shortening, and that is a half cup of each. And then you'll need some water, 6 tablespoons or less, ice water. So let's put this together here. As I think I said earlier there, I'm going to try making some typical Canadian things for the next 2 or 3 videos at least here. Butter tarts are definitely a Canadian thing. Combining the flour, which was pastry flour. It says that you can use all-purpose flour as well, but the pastry flour is what's really recommended. And we'll pulse this. I think that might be alright, but I'll do a couple more pulses, and I'll add some ice water just until it starts to come together. Only 4, and I think that's enough. I'll show you what I do next here. I'll use a Martha Stewart trick here. When it works. I hope it's going to work this time. I just turn it out onto plastic wrap and get it all out of there. And just sort of bring it together with the plastic wrap rather than kneading it or anything like that. I've got more dough here than I usually have, evidently. together into a disc. And that will be refrigerated for a half hour or so while we're making the filling anyway. These are the ingredients for the sauce or batter or whatever you want to call it that goes in the butter tarts. A quarter teaspoon of salt I've already got in the bowl. You can use either 1 or 2 eggs. 1 egg and you'll get a more liquidy center to the tart, or 2 eggs and you get a firmer one, so I'm using 2 eggs. There's also in that I've got 1 teaspoon of my vanilla bean paste, or you could use vanilla extract. A half cup of lightly packed brown sugar, and a half cup of light corn syrup, and a half cup of raisins. I'm using golden raisins. Now that's where some Canadian controversy comes in. Some people say butter tarts do not have raisins in. I like raisins. Raisins go in everything that I make. But you can also put pecans or walnuts, and I've even seen some, according to this recipe, with chocolate chips. So, but the diehards say that there aren't any additives. It's the coldest day of the year here so far today. Minus 15 Celsius this morning. I think going to be even colder tonight, so corn syrup is not pouring too well. All of the ingredients except the raisins go in this and just get mixed well together. The raisins will be added to the bottom of each tart shell before you put some of this filling in there. I will continue beating that until I've got the last lumps out of that brown sugar. Brand new package of brown sugar, and it has lumps in it. A number of years ago, well, probably a decade ago now or more, I spent the winter in Italy and France, and I worked on several farms with a thing called HelpX, Help Exchange. You do the farm labor for half a day, 5 days a week, in exchange for which they give you accommodation and they provide your meals. So, on the 2 Italian farms that I worked on, I was asked on both farms if I would cook something that is typical of where I come from. I thought about it for a long time. I didn't do something that was really Canadian, I don't think, but it is certainly enjoyed here. I did strawberry shortcakes because it was in the late winter, early spring, and ripe strawberries were coming in from Sicily, I think, at that time. Beautiful strawberries. So I did strawberry shortcakes, and they were the best looking shortcakes I've ever made. I did some research after I got back home. It's because of the Italian flour. It's what they call 00 flour. It's milled so much finer than our flour is. These things came out of the oven looking like something out of a cooking magazine, raised at least a half times higher than I'd ever managed to get them to it here at home. And they were well received, so that's what's got me thinking about this. I'm doing Canadian cooking, not necessarily, this is Canadian cooking, but at the time, I don't know, I suspect that strawberry shortcakes might be American, but we certainly enjoy them here anyway. The farm in Tuscany, no, I'm lying, the farm south of Rome that I worked on, the family loved them. They had 3 children and a man and a woman. The next morning I came in for a break halfway through the morning, and the lady was sitting at the kitchen table with her sister who was visiting, and they were having strawberry shortcakes again. There were still some left, and the lady had had 2 dinner time. Then before I left to go back outside, she said, "I've got to confess." I said, "What?" She said, "I got up in the middle of the night and had another one." So I hope strawberry shortcakes are still being made in Italy. Well, let's get the pastry rolled out and in the pastry pan. The oven is preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I forgot to add the main ingredient. I almost had butter tarts without any butter. 1/4 cup of melted butter. And I have moved this mixture into a large, well, just a quart size measuring cup. Makes it easier to pour it into the tart shells. Imagine that, a butter tart without butter. Wouldn't have been good. Time to roll out the pastry. Well, I've rolled out about half of the pastry, quite thin, and I'm cutting it with, it says, a 4-inch cutter, round. Mine's metric, it's 3 7/8, so I'm off by 1/8 of an inch here. I don't think that'll make a big difference. Let me just put the pastry down in the muffin or pastry or tart pan, whatever you want to call it. Bring you back when I have this part of the process finished. Well, the pastry is all in the pan. I'm going to add a few raisins to each one now. Like I said, you could add nuts, various kinds of nuts. It says chocolate chip. I can't imagine them with chocolate chip, but you could try that if you like. Or you can certainly do them plain. That's the way a lot of people like them. As soon as I get the raisins in, these are going in the refrigerator for a half hour or so to chill before I bake them, before I add the filling and bake them. So I'll bring you back when it's time to put the filling in these. I've been in the refrigerator for close to half hour, I guess. And now you fill each cup 2/3 full of the syrup or batter, whatever you want to call it. And it does go much easier if you have something like this to pour it from. As soon as I finish pouring, they'll go in the oven, 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and it stipulates on the bottom shelf, so that's what I've done. Not quite sure why. But I will bring you back when they are ready to come out of the oven. They're just out of the oven, still bubbling. A nice golden, well, darker than a golden brown top, I guess, but I think they're alright. They now have to completely cool before you can remove them from the tart pan. The pastry is really quite a short, crumbly pastry, so you want it to be completely cool before you start removing them. So I'll bring you back after they have cooled. Well, I even had to put them in the refrigerator, get them cold enough so that I could take them out of the pan. And there they are, the finished product. I hope you'll give it a try if you've never heard tell of butter tarts before and want to know what they taste like. All you Canadians watching, I'm sure you've had and probably made butter tarts before. It said 12 minutes at 425. They're a little on the dark side. They're not burnt, but they're a little dark brown. I would think that 10 minutes might have been enough. I wasn't watching them quite close enough, I guess. Well, thank you very much for watching.